Our theme today is Respect and Respond, and today's topic is Honor and Respect Life. As you know, I am in Pacific Grove, California, with 3 members of our center, attending a conference being put on by our international organization, Centers for Spiritual Living. We are sequestered at the Asilomar Conference grounds with just over 500 of our closest friends from all over the United States and Canada. And it's a lovely combination of the old and the new. By that I mean there are people here in their 80s and 90s who have been coming here to this conference for many, many years. There are people in their teens and early 20s who were in elementary or middle school the last time this conference was held here. And everybody in between those two extremes make up the magnificent blend of the energy here. There are ministers and practitioners known throughout our organization. There are wide-eyed first-timers, some of whom attended their first service or class in one of our centers within the last year. And everybody in between those two extremes make up the magnificent blend of the energy here. I just find the timing perfect that they all showed up here to be the background for this day's talk about honoring and respecting life. Some of you may have known Reverend Angelica Jane Taggart when she was a co-pastor at the Center for Spiritual Living East Hawaii. She is here at the conference this year, having left Hawaii some years ago to minister at one of our centers in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Then she moved to one of our centers in Baltimore, Maryland, on the east coast of the U.S. And presently, she is serving as the minister at our center in Eureka, California. And though she has not been on our island in almost 15 years, her talk from the stage of Merrill Hall was loaded with her memories and her respect for life in Hawaii. The lifestyle when she was there, the beauty and magnificence of our big island, Hawaii Island, where she lived on the Hilo side for almost 15 years. So the 4 of us who live on Big Island right here, right now, were a big cheering section in that audience of over 500 people to have our living paradise so beautifully honored for all to hear. And isn't that what Respect and Respond, the theme for this month's talk, is all about? There is so much in our lives and around us to respect, to appreciate, not just in our happy moments, but in our time in spiritual practice, in our times of searching for answers to our challenges, in our interaction with loved ones, neighbors, new acquaintances. But respecting these opportunities, some of which may look rather daunting themselves, is just the first step in this thing called life. In August 1959, Ernest Holmes stood on the stage at the chapel at Asilomar and delivered his last address to attendees at the Religious Science Conference there. Here are his opening words. Our teaching is not something to be lived merely here at Asilomar, as much as inspiration as we receive from it, but rather to take that consciousness which we have arrived at here back with us into whatever activities we may be engaged in. I do not believe, he said, that life is separated from its living anywhere. There is nothing in the world that can take the place of love, friendship, appreciation, and cooperation in our lives. That speaks to me as being such a beautiful expression of respecting what we have. Marvelous opportunities to learn in this teaching. And then in his next breath, he followed that up by gently describing how we respond to the gifts of learning we are given and how to use it. Perhaps I should reiterate the two. He expressed respect by saying our teaching is not something to be lived merely here at Asilomar, as much inspiration as we receive from that, but rather to take that consciousness which we have arrived at here back with us into whatever activities we may be engaged in. He expressed respond by saying, I do not believe that life is separated by its living anywhere. There is nothing in the world that can take the place of love, friendship, appreciation, and cooperation in our lives. And, like me, I'll bet some of you are thinking right now, he said that very succinctly in one sentence. There's a power for good in the universe, and you can use it. As you know, there are excerpts from Dr. Holmes' Sermon by the Sea for your reading pleasure in the August Science of Mind magazine. And there is a booklet of the same name with a complete talk contained within it if you would like to have that in your library. When it comes to honoring and respecting life, all life, some of us discover, sooner or later, that we may still be dealing with some challenges. The founder of our teaching was not only a spiritual seeker, a voracious writer, a poet, and a magnificent speaker. He had a delightful sense of humor, which he often used to make his point. In his Sermon by the Sea, he made some statements which show his humorous side, but still carry a wallop in terms of meaning. From the words of Jesus, "Judge not, lest God judge you," Holmes said. That's not what he said. What he said was, "Judge not, that you be not judged. For with that judgment you judge, you shall be judged." And then Holmes said, in other words, your judgment will judge you. And to the degree that you judge, I'm paraphrasing now, to the degree that you judge, that's what comes back on you. God is not going to measure it, deliver it back onto you, and mutter, "I'll show you what's boss." You, Holmes reminded us, you are the one who does the measuring of what comes back on you. And then he goes on to talk about how wonderful it would be if a group of people would arrive here on earth who were for something and against nothing. This would be the summum bonum, he said, the highest good, especially as the ultimate goal according to which values and priorities are established in an ethical system, summum bonum. He followed that by this consideration: find me one person who is for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his soul, and I will have found an exalted human being. There are 10 more "find me one person who" statements in the Sermon by the Sea. You'll have to obtain a copy of the booklet for the other 10, or find yourself sitting here for 2 more hours this morning while I reel them off. Perhaps in the next few weeks we can discuss some of them which have piqued your curiosity, or your doubt, or your anger, or... There is a reason I selected the first one of those 11 "find me one person who" statements in his Sermon by the Sea. Find me one person who is for something and against nothing, one who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his soul, and I will have found an exalted human being. Our conference has been a combination of breakout workshops and general session speakers. And there was a theme in the presentation of the general session speakers. The entire conference attendees were in those general sessions so that we all heard the same thing at the same time. The underlying theme in each of the presentations was their own recognition of who they had been before they found this teaching and applied it, and who they are now. There were some pretty poignant sharing, some of the things each had been against and why. And how each, in his own way, had gotten the message, "Judge not, because my judgment defines me," and recognized what it is my work to do with myself. And isn't this the truth of each one of us, spiritual beings having a human experience? Holmes was very clear that none of us can avoid thinking, and that thinking is a timeless force. Each of us has the power to think, and we have the unlimited capacity to direct that thought. So why would anyone direct their thought toward what they don't like or what they don't want instead of directing it toward what they do? Because when we direct our thought toward what we don't like or want, we energize it and we actually expand it in our own subconscious, where it has to be in order for us to even recognize it around us. Oh, let me share with you folks. The word surrender came up often this past few days, but not suggesting surrendering to what one doesn't like or want, but surrendering to what one does. When those of us who are attending the conference return home, you will have the sweet opportunity to talk with each of us, if you choose, to get ideas, opinions, and the impact each of us experienced. Each of you and each of us will have some pretty impressive responses to that sharing. And best of all, we will all have the opportunity to practice honoring and respecting each other in the process. And so it is.